Good morning and welcome to day 2 of Analytics of Big Data and the Cloud, the conference going on at Fantasyland Hotel in West Edmonton. Of course, you're probably watching us on one of these 3 websites, fuselogic.tv, abctech.ca, or bestofanalytics.com. You can get live interviews and refeeds throughout today and tomorrow as well. I'm your host, Rob Hislop. Today we are joined by Bill Wong. And Bill, you're with Microsoft, and you were the first keynote speaker today. And you're talking about big data and the importance of it. Perhaps you can give us just a quick little synopsis of what you were talking about, and then we'll get into a little bit deeper.
What we're talking about with the big data is it opens a whole new set of opportunities that people haven't seen before. By getting access to social media, to data, large volumes of data that they've never had access to before, and that's generating new applications, new excitement.
Well, one of the things when I hear big data, and you also brought this up, is no data is unimportant. And you don't get rid of anything, which, you know, in my mind, I'm thinking spring cleaning, it's time for that, get rid of the clutter, but there is no such thing as clutter when it comes to big data, is there?
That's right, and it's a paradigm shift. When you don't erase data, where you keep adding, and think about terabytes was considered big, petabytes, now we're going into exabytes, yottabytes, zettabytes, so the data is just getting massive.
Mm-hmm. Well, what's the purpose of saving all of this?
Well, in the end, for companies, they want to make money, and they're going to do that by trying to understand us better. So perhaps by monitoring social networks, our tweets, so they can build better products, for political purposes, to understand sentiments, to predict and to understand what people are thinking about their policies.
When you say understand sentiments, what are you referring to?
So what happens today, notice that there was an election here recently.
Yeah, last night. Yeah.
So the pollsters seem to track tweets, but they could only track the amount of tweets. And the technology is there today with natural language processing to take a look at the tweet and have a machine algorithm decide, is it a positive or is it a negative? Now, if we had that kind of information, perhaps the pollsters would have better insight on well,
because that's one of the things that they're talking about today is how could the pollsters have been so wrong? And it's just because of, is it because they're using an old style of measuring?
I think so.
Mm-hmm.
I think this will transform how we collect statistics and do polls. Imagine a world where we can take track and keep track and pull everything together from video feeds, from tweets, from audio interviews, and then we pull that all in together and then take a look, okay, where is the voter sentiment? Not just on a sample size of 2 or 3%, mm-hmm. and just go, well, they're talking about it, but not understanding what they're saying.
So you see the world transitioning to that. Is this going to be a relatively quick process, do you think, or is it going to take some time?
I think it's going to take a little time, and partly because the skills. This is a new set of skills, and some of the leading firms that are doing it, they have the skills like Yahoo and Google and Facebook, mm-hmm. and now it's for the rest of the world. Because the technology has come down so far, cheap disks, cheap CPUs, companies can do this themselves, but now the challenge is to skill up, to get the staff.
So I guess, are the universities training these people, or is it something that they would have to go to, say, a Microsoft or something like that to figure out what they need to do?
Well, some of the universities are, and actually Microsoft is engaged in one of the Canadian universities to help create a course curriculum to train people for these kind of future demands. And other vendors are doing this because we all see that a lack of skills is going to be a big hurdle to overcome.
Is that the biggest one right now, that companies might be willing to do it, but they just don't know how to go about doing it?
I think it's certainly up in the top 1 or 2. Mm-hmm. Others are just getting their arms around what business problem do we want to solve with it. So it is a high priority item with practically every company that I'm talking to today.
Okay, so skill, and now we're also talking about saving all this data as well. For people who may have thought before, or the person who has a home computer that's got a 1 terabyte hard drive, external hard drive now, and thinks that that's huge, you're picturing it in physical form, but we're not talking physical form here in storing the data, are we?
No.
Not the same way that we're used to.
No, not the same way. So we're actually going to give people options. So if the person on his desktop PC still wants that terabyte drive, they're welcome to do that, but then they're going to have to buy lots of terabyte drives. And where we're seeing a lot of companies doing it is putting it up in the cloud. and it has infinite much more elasticity, and they place it up there. They don't have to worry about managing it, and it'll lower their cost of computing.
When you talk about putting something up on the cloud, and this is, what is the security involved in something like that to make sure that other people don't have access to it, or that the people overseeing the cloud don't have access to it?
It's a good question, and security has been for the longest time one of the biggest concerns about going to cloud computing, and that's been addressed by new technology to make everybody have their individual portions. Partitioning, there's a term that escapes me, but it's being addressed, and more people are having concerns now on, okay, how do we deploy this? Should it be more in-house, or do we go on the cloud? So I think it's shifting now.
Okay, and speaking of the cloud, we're not talking about something physical here, are we?
Not to you.
Right.
Not to you.
Okay, but to you.
But folks like Microsoft,
yeah.
Other companies as well, we manage over 100 petabytes of information of people putting data in the cloud. So other companies do provide a service. So if you want to save a certain audio file, you don't want to place it on a PC, put it up in the cloud, and then you can extract it from your mobile device, your PC. Just more flexible.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, you can talk about perhaps some of the applications that big data can be used for as well when it comes to the healthcare industry or even the oil and gas industry, which you made reference to.
Sure.
Okay, quick break right now. We'll be back in about a minute.
Business happens fast. Clients expect immediate responses. A great way to build rapport? A custom rapid video response using Skype. The Fuse Logic Rapid Video Response program will immediately separate your business from your competition. Here's how it works. Step 1. Identify a marketing message you want to share. Step 2. Contact Fuse Logic. We will help you pull together your rapid video response script with key messaging. Next, our Fuse Logic TV team will do a test call with you to check your Skype account, sound, and lighting in your office. We schedule a recording date and time and produce your rapid video response video show. Here's an example.
Hi, this is Rob Petney of June Warren Nichols Energy Group. I'm here to announce a new product.
Don't wait. Call Fuse Logic TV today and create your cost-effective rapid video response.
Welcome back. Again, joining us on the set of Fuse Logic TV right now, Bill Wong with Microsoft. And you were touching on some of the industries that you think can benefit from big data. And perhaps you can tell us, how could healthcare benefit from something like this?
Okay, so healthcare is a great example. In this province, I understand well over 40% of the budget goes to healthcare. So can we be smarter about it? And people have been using analytics for a while in healthcare, but now we have access to everything. So with big data, one of the strengths of big data is data that typically we haven't been able to access, like x-rays. So certain parts of your medical history, maybe it's a prescription, those kind of things. Can we collect all that and build a profile, a health profile? And especially with things like genomic or proteomic, the DNA research. And that's happening in some of the U.S. hospitals today, where they take your DNA profile and then they understand your propensity to perhaps catch a certain disease, and you can change your lifestyle. So those things are happening, and within 5 years, certainly at the leading edge hospitals, people will see their healthcare transform. And this means lower visits to hospitals, meaning lower costs. And in the US, I don't have Canadian figures, the US alone, they forecast $300 billion savings a year just using big data applications in healthcare.
Which is huge. Okay, so you're scaring me. Okay, and only from the point where you're saying they're taking DNA as well. So they've got all this information on me. You know, I mean, I'm videotaped wherever I go, and my shopping habits are monitored. And now you're telling me that hospitals in the States are taking DNA, sure, for good purposes right now. But and we talked to one person yesterday, who said privacy is no longer an issue. It's maintaining your identity, which he says is what a lot of the younger people today are concerned about, is maintaining that individuality. But privacy is not such a big deal. And that's what strikes me about big data, is just like you're giving up a lot, whether you know it or not.
Yes, yeah, that's true. And maybe I think the younger generation has a perspective they've gained because of the social media that our generation has a more difficult time. And yeah, I think it's still good to have privacy, but again, with all the machines out there, for instance, your smartphone or cell phone, they're forecasting a $600 billion market on markets that haven't been created yet, just because of the digital fingerprints you leave. So where you are today, perhaps you'll have an app in the future the shortest distance driving from A to B to save fuel. And that can drive a lot, especially in oil and gas, as they're shipping these things. And do things like personal advertising. So advertisers will know where you are, they will know your tendencies by your clickstream, and you'll get targeted. And I just
That doesn't make me feel any better. Okay. Because I've been trying to avoid them with a PVR and hanging up on people who phone.
Yes.
You know, but now they're going to have access to me. Will there be ways to prevent this from, like, if you're the consumer, will there be ways to block these sorts of things as well?
I believe there will always be ways to block. There will always be ways to block. However, they'll continue to get innovative and find ways. The marketers want your headspace. They want you to focus on their messages.
Right. So it's sort of like a horror movie right now.
It is.
Okay.
It is.
You were talking Moneyball, so let's try and turn this around a little bit. Moneyball, where of course they use statistics as opposed to looking for the guy who was paid the most money. They looked for the best statistics under certain circumstances. How do you sort of talked about that, and you talked about the oil and gas industry, how you can take statistics on a real-time basis with oil and gas, and that can make a difference in the industry. How would that work?
Right. So there's a lot of data today that people are just throwing away. There's just too much, and they don't know how to perform analytics on it. But imagine, if you will, all the sensor data that's being created. And a lot of the data today being created is being created digitally. It's not a human. It's machines creating the data. If we collect all that sensor information and maybe get a better understanding of things like mean time to failure for certain components on the rigs, on the pipelines, that'll help them predict and be preactive, fixing those things a lot cheaper, saving money. And those kind of industries are going to emerge where people are going to make more money selling the data than the actual goods themselves. And that's happening today already.
Okay, so I'm just looking at this, and it sounds fascinating, and the way that they can use all this data. How do they know what's important and what's not? Or again, sort of like we talked about in the first part, is nothing not important anymore?
Well, I think the advantage of big data is we can keep it all, and a lot of times we don't know what's important, and that's the advantage of big data. It doesn't decide for you. Just keep it all. What we're going to need are skilled people to look at the data and figure out, okay, we've got all of it. How can we best leverage this data to get us some insight? And we see the emergence and the need for these new skills of people understanding statistics, data, a lot better in the future.
You spoke about CEOs perhaps being inundated with charts and graphs and all that sort of thing now. How is that going to change? Will it get better for them, or anybody who's looking at big data? Are they going to be inundated with all these findings as well that could just, snow them over?
I think you raise a good point that there is that danger. They're just going to get snowballed with data. And the good organizations will be able to do what they do today, is to boil that down into something meaningful for a C-level executive to take action on. That's their challenge.
So they're going to get information that should be able to help them make more money and serve their clients better. But another advantage to this is it's going to happen faster than it has in the past.
Yes, much faster. Unlike the traditional ways of getting insight, where you really have to clean the data, transform the data, and all for good purposes because you want to share it. But if it's the C-level exec asking, I want to get a feel of how people are feeling about our new product, our new car, what's the sentiment out there? You don't really need that amount of rigor to figure out if people like it or dislike it. And an individual programmer can do that very inexpensively if they have the skills.
So in the past, where it might take weeks, months, perhaps even years to get a good sense, today we're talking hours?
Yes, you could do it as short as that if you have the right skills.
So just to wrap up here, it's an industry that's getting going. We don't have all the skilled personnel available to watch it just sort of skyrocket. How long do you see it taking before big data is used almost universally?
Well, data warehousing.
Do you have the data on that?
I don't have the data. If I was going to predict, I think big data is going to be here for a long time, and I think it'll take a while for everybody. But I think it's the goal of firms like Microsoft is to make analytics available to everybody, not just a central organization. I think that's the challenge people have today, because things are so expensive. You can do this at a cost-effective manner and try to drive analytics to as many people as you can.
Okay, and I thought that was the last question, but this will be the last question. What should people do if they're interested in analytics and finding out more about it? Where should they go looking for it?
There's a lot of great webinars on understanding big data, on especially Hadoop, and there's a lot of free tools. Microsoft has a number of free tools that you download. We have an analytics for Twitter that you can use to understand sentiment, and that's a free download. Mm-hmm. So get yourself educated and familiar, and then work with the team at your company and try to find that business problem that can take advantage of this technology.
Bill, thank you very much.
Rob, it's been a pleasure.
We've been chatting with Bill Wong from Microsoft. Of course, we're going to be here all day today, so stick around. We'll be rerunning some of the interviews and keynote speakers for you, plus we'll have some new interviews throughout the day.